Now, after days of mounting international pressure and warnings of famine from humanitarian organisations, Israel says it's allowed the largest number of aid trucks into Gaza since the war began 6 months ago. Israeli authorities say 322 trucks entered the strip, most of them carrying food. Before the war, 500 trucks used to arrive daily. Aid organisations accuse Israel of slowing the delivery of humanitarian relief supplies. The UN has described the situation in Gaza as man-made starvation and warned of famine. Tess Duncan is a communications specialist at UNICEF, and she joins us live now from outside the Kuwaiti Hospital in Rafah. Tess, great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. So we've seen this convoy of aid trucks entering Gaza. First of all, can you help us understand where that aid is going and the impact that it's having?
Oh, it's so important. When I came into Gaza last week, I know that there were 1,200 UN and NGO trucks backed up waiting to enter. So the fact that we've seen more trucks come in is really good news, but we need this to happen consistently because, of course, Gaza's on the precipice of a famine. This food has to get in and across the Gaza Strip with urgency. Most of the children dying of malnutrition are in the north, and our access to that area with food aid has been so limited. So it's really important that this aid comes in at scale and is continued for the days to come.
Give us an idea of the logistics once the aid is inside Gaza, how it is distributed from the south to the north and the obstacles that it faces.
It's a really challenging process. It's one of the most challenging places in the world to be a humanitarian aid worker at the moment, largely because of the safety concerns, as we saw with colleagues at World Central Kitchen on Monday. Even when we coordinate a mission with Israel that we're told is safe, we are still put at risk, and that's part of the challenge in getting the aid to the north. We're just not getting the safety assurances we need. And then, of course, there's other challenges, damages to roads, restrictions on where we can travel, a serious lack of trucks now and fuel that we can use to transport the aid. So the obstacles are many, but we're still doing our best in these really difficult circumstances to bring food and water and medicine and nutrition treatments to the vulnerable children that need it.
How has UNICEF perhaps changed its operations since that Israeli strike on World Central Kitchen?
We, along with other UN agencies, took a 48-hour pause on night operations, but we're back to full operations now. We've been here in Gaza for decades and we're not going anywhere. We're going to stay here during the fighting, stay here as the guns fall silent, and then help the children of Gaza to rebuild once there finally is peace. But of course, we can't do that if it's not safe. So we need these safety assurances from Israel that when we go on a coordinated mission, we know we're not going to be killed.
Tess, you're there at the Kuwaiti Hospital in Rafah. Can you tell us what's the situation there? Because we know that all medical facilities are running low on supplies. And added to that, of course, is the impact of Al-Shifa Hospital being taken offline. So what is the situation in the remaining hospitals?
I visited 4 hospitals in the last 5 days, and I can tell you that every medical director has told me about the impact of the lack of resources and the lack of staff and how that's really detrimental for the patients in these hospitals. They're running at 4 times capacity. Children are dying from infections. Children are dying from malnutrition. There's just not enough staff and resources to go around. So the needs are great. That's why we have to rush this aid in, and it's why we need a ceasefire.
Well, instead, we've got Israel keeping on raising the spectre of a ground offensive on Rafah, where you are. That's where 600,000 children are living, mostly in makeshift shelters. Can you envisage a situation where they are all evacuated to safety?
No, I can't. There is no safe place in Gaza to evacuate these children to. And when you walk around the streets of Rafah here, it is so clear that this is a city of children. Every second person is a child. And I've met so many who have already been injured here in Rafah. 9-year-old who was shot, a 10-year-old, sorry, who was shot in the head in Mawasi, a 16-year-old whose house fell down around her and she broke her leg, and a 10-year-old who has major wounds from explosions. And this is all happening already in this area. So the children are vulnerable and they need this fighting to end. If it came into Rafah, that would just be catastrophic.
Tess, if I can just ask you one more question, even as you are battling to be heard above the call to prayer behind you there. The international aid in northern Gaza, 1 in 3 children under 2 years. We know that they are acutely malnourished. We've been hearing for some time that that whole region is on the edge of famine. If aid is reaching there now, is it arriving in time to prevent a widespread famine in that region?
Look, a famine could happen at any moment now in the north of the Gaza Strip. We've been warning about this for months, and still too little aid has got into that area. We're going to try and attempt to go there tomorrow with some nutrition treatments that are needed to try and help these children survive the lack of food that they've been faced with for months. But we know that children are dying now already at these hospitals, and they desperately need our help. Even in the middle area where I was on Wednesday, I met a boy who had just come down from the north, 7 years old. His name's Omar, and he'd been living on grass, and he was so sick and malnourished, in so much pain. And this has to be unacceptable to the world when the aid and the food is just a few kilometres away.
Tragic stories indeed. Tess Ingram, we really appreciate you taking the time to bring us those stories and bring us the situation there in Rafah. Tess Ingram with UNICEF joining us there from outside the Kuwaiti Hospital in Rafah.